Let's jump right into this explainer. We're taking a total masterclass today on the absolute golden rule of cinema: show, don't tell. We're going to break down the fundamental language of visual storytelling, really getting into how the absolute best directors out there communicate profound emotion without uttering a single word. Why waste time say lot word when few word do trick? It's hilarious, right? But Kevin Malone from The Office actually hit the nail on the head. Since the advent of sound, filmmakers have kind of started using dialogue as a massive crutch, just spoon-feeding the audience exactly what's happening. But when you truly master visual storytelling, the camera itself does all the talking. A specific look, a deliberate shot, or a perfectly timed cut that can relay an entire conversation's worth of information with a level of nuance that dialogue literally just can't touch. So today, we're building your ultimate cinematic toolkit. We're going to hit visual storytelling, mastering camera and movement, painting with light, the art of the edit, and finally, directing the AI filmmaker. Kicking things off with Section 1, Beyond Words, Visual Storytelling. Let's look at how raw performances and nonverbal exchanges can totally command a scene when the dialogue is deliberately stripped away.
When you cut the words, you force the audience to lean in and read the visual cues. Take Paul Thomas Anderson's Phantom Thread. There's this silent scene where they're just eating an omelet, but we know it's poisoned. So the extreme nuances on the actress's face, a subtle head tilt, a suppressed grin, just a simple swallow, it communicates this massive shift in power. Or think about setting. In Portrait of a Lady on Fire, a scene set at a literal bonfire physically embodies the spark and sheer danger of a forbidden relationship. And in Beau Travail, it's all about the blocking. You've got two rival military men circling each other in the desert like boxers. Are they just rivals, or is there a hidden desire there? The physical movement alone is asking that question.
Moving on to Section 2, Mastering Camera and Movement. Let's see how the physical placement and movement of the camera itself becomes your next major storytelling tool. Look, just because you can move the camera doesn't mean you always should. Martin Scorsese actually made a great point about this. Back in the day, you showed mastery by moving the camera constantly because it was incredibly hard to pull off. But now, dynamic movement is ridiculously easy to achieve. So today, true directorial mastery really shines in your restraint. There is actually this growing fatigue in the filmmaker community with the endless floating gimbal shot. When everything is floating, nothing feels grounded anymore, right? Sure, a gimbal gives you this fluid grace, which is absolutely perfect when a scene specifically calls for it, but overusing it completely flattens the emotional impact. On the flip side, a controlled, intentional handhold shot injects this immediate human texture and raw presence straight into your narrative. You've got to match the tool to the emotional tone of the scene. It's honestly fascinating how just a simple shift in camera angle subconsciously tells us exactly how a character's internal focus has changed. Take the film Sound of Metal. The main character, Ruben, starts a scene totally stuck in his own head. The camera's placed squarely in front of him, right? It isolates him. But then a child behind him starts banging on a metal slide. Suddenly, the camera angle shifts to behind Ruben and becomes much more mobile. It underscores this incredible burst of shared energy as he bonds with the kid. No dialogue needed at all. The camera's geography did all the heavy lifting for us. All right, Section 3, Painting with Light. Let's dive into atmosphere and how we can use lighting to subconsciously manipulate the audience's emotional state. Getting a handle on color temperature, which is measured in Kelvin, literally changes everything about how your scene feels. If you want to evoke nostalgia, comfort, or intimacy, you're going to reach for warm, golden hour lighting, yellows and oranges. But if you need to convey isolation, melancholy, or tension, you pivot to cool, twilight hues of blue and green. Light is hitting your viewers on a deeply subconscious level before the scene even really starts. And then we have the classic three-point setup. This is the absolute backbone of shaping your subject. Honestly, it doesn't matter if you're standing on $1 million physical film set or just typing an image prompt on your laptop. You have your key light to create shape and drama, your fill light to dial in the contrast and soften shadows, and your backlight to carve your subject right out from the background. That's what gives you that beautiful three-dimensional depth. Now, understanding how the balance of those specific lights dictates genre and mood is absolutely essential. High-key lighting is bright, it's even, and it has minimal shadows. It creates a vibe of security and optimism, which is exactly why you see it in comedies and upbeat commercials. Low-key lighting, though, relies on heavy shadows and high contrast. Boom, it immediately induces anxiety, suspense, and mystery. It's the absolute staple of thrillers, film noir, and heavy dramas. You can even use lighting, composition, and digital manipulation to convey totally abstract concepts. Photographer Simon Leonard does this brilliantly in his series exploring the physical and emotional distance of an absent father. By manipulating childhood drawings, 3D renderings, and abstract imagery that almost looks like stem cells, he forces us to think about DNA versus nurture. He creates this visual tension that bridges a physical gap, making an absent figure somehow tangible in a digital space. It's pretty wild. That brings us to section 4, the art of the edit. Let's step into the editing bay, where we stitch all of these raw visual elements together into one cohesive, driving story. Alfred Hitchcock proved time and time again that the cut itself is one of the most powerful storytelling tools you possess. Take his film Sabotage. There's a moment where a woman realizes her husband's actions led to her brother's death. The dialogue completely stops. The suspense is built entirely through eyeline matches. We cut from her nervous hands reaching for a knife to his face as he puts the pieces together, and back again. The camera pushes in tighter and tighter, and these strategic cuts just relentlessly accelerate the drama. No words required. But hey, the editing process actually begins way before you make that first cut. Professional editor Andy Toe stresses that having a fail-proof, anxiety-reducing folder hierarchy is an absolute must. He meticulously organizes his files by year, month, date, and project name, and then builds out subfolders for specific cameras, audio, and exports. It frees up your mind. When you aren't stressing about finding a random clip in Final Cut Pro, you can focus 100% on the creative rhythm of the edit itself. All right, section 5. Directing the AI filmmaker. Here is the ultimate twist. Everything we just covered, mastering this traditional cinematic vocabulary, is actually the exact secret to unlocking the new frontier of AI video generation. See, AI models are trained on standard cinematography terms. To get truly professional results, you have to act like a traditional director. Platforms like LTX Studios use a 6-part prompt structure. You can't just type a person. You have to explicitly command the AI. You need the subject, the specific action they're taking, the setting and weather, the precise camera shot size and movement, the lighting quality, and finally, the aesthetic style. Think about the difference between a weak prompt, like a product shot of a bottle, versus something highly specific. That weak prompt is going to give you a vague, useless clip, but a strong prompt, it tells the AI exactly what is in the scene, a brushed steel bottle. More importantly, it uses cinematic vocabulary to dictate how the camera moves, maybe a 20-degree arc, and how the light falls, like a soft key light from the top left, combined with a shallow depth of field. That is how you get a shot you can actually drop into a professional edit. And just like choosing between classic film stocks or physical camera bodies, knowing your specific AI model is absolutely key. LTX 2.3 is fantastic for fast iteration right inside a single workspace. If you're chasing ultimate photorealism and native synced audio, you're going to reach for something like VO 3.1. Kling 3.0 Pro is your best bet for holding consistency across multi-shot cinematic sequences, while CDance 2.0 specializes in the incredibly tricky task of rendering human motion and physical interaction. You really have to match the digital camera to your vision. We are well past the era of typing one block of text and just praying for a good 5-second output. With features like shot control, you can actually implement frame-by-frame prompting. You could start with a wide establishing shot, define a specific camera push in exactly 3 seconds in, and end on a tight close-up. It lets you physically choreograph a scene's evolution over time, meaning you can sync those visual moments perfectly with your narrative beats. It's a total game changer. But, what happens when your AI prompt inevitably falls flat? The absolute biggest mistake you can make is rewriting the whole prompt from scratch. Don't do it. Instead, use a systematic iteration workflow. Change just one variable at a time, moving from the cheapest, easiest changes to the most complex. Start by swapping a style keyword. If that doesn't fix it, adjust your lighting direction. Then maybe the camera move, then the action verb, and finally add more specificity to your subject. Doing this targeted A/B testing is going to save you so much time and frustration. And finally, our last section, the future of storytelling. As we wrap up this toolkit, one thing is abundantly clear. The fundamental rules of visual narrative aren't going anywhere. They're just evolving into an entirely new medium. So, we'll leave you with this provocative thought. If a machine can render the perfect shot, what is the role of the human director? As AI continues to master the technical rendering of light, shadow, and pixels, simply generating a pretty image isn't going to be special anymore. Your true value, your real power as a storyteller, lies entirely in your creative vision, your taste, and your mastery of the visual language we've explored today. The real question is, how will you direct the machine?